On this episode of Urban U, discover how a Brooklyn College professor brings ancient history into today's conversations. Meet a Hunter alum who turned her social work background into a new career in coaching. And explore CUNY's School of Law mission, past and present. We'll also hear from a Hunter grad whose creativity didn't just build an audience, it helped pay her tuition, with CUNY fueling her path from student to storyteller. Welcome to Urban U.
Alexander was brilliant, charismatic, impulsive, reckless, and to a greater extent than I think anyone believes, an amazing leader. And he wasn't just good at the sort of flashy things, he wasn't just brave, but he was able to negotiate and willing to look at things from the other person's perspective, and I think that was really the key to his greatness. What happens to Alexander in the later part of the years of his life, which is what my book focuses on, is really that is, to me, the key to his greatness. He runs into trouble in these campaigns, particularly in Afghanistan, Central Asia, and Pakistan, and it's through the challenges he faces, guerrilla warfare, army mutiny, nearly getting himself killed multiple times, that he learned how to become this more thoughtful and particularly more integrative leader who is not just interested in kind of conquering the empire of, by, and for Macedonians, but really bringing people from all over into the empire. And to me, that is the issue that is most significant today. That what he's trying to do is forge a multicultural state out of people of very disparate regions, religions, languages, cultures. And he has a lot of the same questions that we do today. Is one group on top? How do minority groups have a share in the leadership? And I don't want to whitewash Alexander. He had extraordinary power and he used it to do terrible things. But he didn't exist in a vacuum. And I think one of the things that is unusual about him and sets him apart from his time is his willingness to engage with other people and share power with them, even if they come from other cultures, in a way that was extraordinary. So most Alexander books are based on the ancient literary sources, which are these kind of powerful men speaking to other powerful men about one of the most famous rulers of antiquity. The sources are late. The earliest that we have were written down 300 years after the death of Alexander. So that's like, imagine if you're trying to write a biography of George Washington, and the only things you have written down are from now. As an archaeologist, I use those sources, but I also drew on a lot of other ones, particularly archaeological materials. So for example, there's this big fight about Persepolis in the scholarly literature. We all know that Alexander burned it down, but there's a question about whether he did so intentionally or whether this is a dinner party that got really out of hand. And the ancient literary sources contradict one another, so there's not much you can do in mining the texts. But as an archaeologist, I remember sitting down with these 3 huge volumes from the University of Chicago, is the Oriental Institute of Chicago excavations in the 1930s. Because if you really read the excavation reports as an archaeologist, you can see how thoroughly Alexander and his men looted the palace and the treasury of everything valuable. You can see where they piled up material like cloth of gold to light fires. You can even see where they dropped little things like a few gold rosettes as they ran up the staircase and a bottleneck to get out. And from this you can see that the burning of Persepolis was not some drunken orgy, it was meticulously planned and carefully executed. And that tells us something about Alexander as a leader. There's this one time when he's trying to figure out what to do with the Persian royal family. He's captured them. One day he gets this shipment of wool and weavers from Macedonia. And he's all excited, and he sends them off to the Persian royal women with this message that if they like the wool, the weavers can teach them how to make more. And from a Macedonian perspective, this is a great gift because everybody from the lowest to the queen is supposed to know how to weave. That's what a good Greek woman does. But it doesn't look that way for Persians. In Persia, weaving is something that servants do. So it's like, imagine if you had been queen of this amazing empire and somebody handed you a mop. And so the messenger comes back to Alexander and says, the Persian queen mother has tears in her eyes. And to his credit, Alexander goes to her and apologizes. He says, these clothes that I'm wearing were made for me by my mother and sisters, and I was misled by my own customs. So what we're seeing here is Alexander adjusting his cultural viewpoint, which is a pretty amazing thing for somebody to do who had almost untrammeled political power. And it's a story, I think, about how hard it is to navigate another culture, but also how important it is to be able to change course and admit when you're wrong.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabel Ortiz and welcome to Next Gen CUNY, where we spotlight CUNY grads who are doing amazing things in their careers and leaving their marks on their communities. Today I have the pleasure of being joined by a remarkable guest. She's a Hunter College grad, a licensed social worker turned career coach, and a fierce advocate for the next generation of leaders. With that being said, I would love to give a warm welcome to Harleny Vasquez. Hi Harleny, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I am so excited because, like I mentioned, you are a Hunter grad. You started your social work career there, but then you turned from social worker to career coach. Can you tell me a little bit about that transition or why you decided to make that transition?
Absolutely. The golden question. I think it really started from honing in that as a licensed social worker, even before all of that started, I was seeking community. And that feeling of starting to see community came from the frustration that I felt from not passing my licensure exam at that time. And it really just started with me creating content on Instagram, on LinkedIn, to really build community, especially for my first gen Latinas. And I think it was really stemming from that frustration and that ability to create something more. And because of me building that community, it led me into building my brand on LinkedIn, into, pivoting from social work into recruiting, and just really giving me the opportunity just to create impact all around.
You at one time said that your career as a licensed social worker felt like your whole identity and you needed a change. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, being able to support children and families, throughout New York City, I worked in shelter system. I worked in the foster care system, especially, we're marginalized and was the most vulnerable population. But I feel like in my role as a social worker, there was only so much that I could do when it came to the impact and the systemic changes that I wanted to create as a whole. And because of that experience, I recognized that, yes, I'm passionate about what I do. I'm able to help others, but it wasn't until, the level that I actually wanted to create that impact. And because of that experience, it led me into entrepreneurship and being able to realize, wait a minute, I can still help people. I can still serve my community, but being able to expand in ways that I never thought possible and still, come back to my roots.
Yeah, and you said it. You were able to start your own brand. You are an entrepreneur, and you started your Evolved Mind 5 years ago. Can you tell me a little bit about your brand, about your company, and what you do there?
Well, first of all, I definitely want to first give a shout out to my husband because he was the one that actually helped me give the name Your Evolved Mind.
A little bit of collaboration.
Collaboration. But the honest truth, Your Evolved Mind, it really gravitated because, as humans, we're always evolving, right? And I think especially for the next gen, we're always in this constant need for change, that I have to be able to do something new, that I have to be able to start from scratch, as opposed to, wait, how can you get to a point where you're able to recognize the things that you do have, the strengths that you do have, and being able to let that flourish, right? Which honestly, it really kind of led me into loving Your Evolved Mind, because we're always evolving and we're always in different seasons of our lives.
Yeah, and you describe yourself as a career cheerleader. What does that mean to you, and how does that work in your brand?
I feel that, especially me being a first-gen Latina and the eldest daughter of immigrant parents, I think that for me, I didn't have a roadmap, right? So I had to be able to become my biggest cheerleader, but my biggest motivator was my mother. She raised me and my sister as a single mother, so I always saw her need to continue to fight no matter what. So she was able to kind of lead to the example that keeps showing up no matter what, even if things get hard. So then that, particular pathway was instilled in me, and then that same passion, that same drive, I'm able to help, with the students that I serve, and giving them that same still of hope to be able to recognize, like, hey, I know things are challenging right now. I know things are uncertain, but you are able to create the success you desire, and that you have all the potential in the world, to be able to succeed, even if you don't realize it in this moment.
And you even said or explain how you experienced imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. I mean, I always say imposter syndrome never goes away. And I feel like it's as we continue to evolve, as we continue to step into these different seasons of our lives, imposter syndrome is always going to knock on our door. I think for me, going back to my struggle with license exam, right? It took me 5 times to pass that exam. And you may think, oh, after the second try, you're going to give up. But for me, I recognize, like, no, it doesn't end here. This is not going to define my path, right? And I know so many who are listening to this can relate, whether it's the SAT, the GED, whatever exam, entrance exam, right? The GRE, anything that they have to basically study for, that in that moment is defining their entire life and their career. And I think it's important to kind of recognize for me that, yes, imposter syndrome was knocking on my door, but regardless, I still had that end vision to know, like, I'm not going to give up. It just may not look the exact way that I wanted to in that moment, but I know that I'm going to achieve my goal no matter what. So I think it took a lot of self-awareness, self-reflection to recognize, like, what are my transferable skills? What are the things that I need to be able to pour back into myself? Again, hence building my personal brand and being able to kind of overcome that as best as I can. And I know that it looks different for everyone.
And you had such great success with your company within these 5 years. But what do you hope to accomplish next? What is your next goal?
My goal is honestly to continue enhancing my mission to the next level and really kind of supporting, again, the next generation across the nation globally. And I think it's important, for me to be able to set that goal. See, I honestly set an intention this year to speak at 20 colleges and universities across the nation. I'm at 10 so far, right?
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you. So I think that's what's next for Evolved Mind, to be able to kind of continue this college speaking tour, to share keynotes on the student experience for the students, and also helping faculty be able to support their students through their academic journey. And that is my goal for 2025.
Well, I already have a feeling you're going to reach that goal, but I can't wait to see what you do with your Evolved Mind and what's next. But I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. It was such a pleasure getting to speak with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Still up on Urban U, a look at the CUNY School of Law, where a mission of justice, past and present, continues to shape tomorrow's legal minds. And a Hunter grad whose success as a content creator shows how CUNY invests in talent, turning creativity into opportunity. Stay tuned.
In 1979, the CUNY Board of Trustees faced a dilemma. The State Board of Regents had approved the idea for a CUNY law school in 1974, but the city's fiscal crisis delayed the project. When the proposal resurfaced, the Board of Trustees questioned the need for a law school. The city already had 11 law schools. The Labor Department projected an oversupply of law graduates in the 1980s. But then Chancellor Robert Kibbe pointed out there were no public law schools in the state east of Buffalo and that it could focus on public service. That year, the board approved a budget carve-out to start a law school at Queens College. In 1982, The board approved a curriculum that specialized in training for areas such as government and civil rights. The school also set off with the mission to, quote, enhance the diversity of the bar and to recruit students from and train lawyers for historically underserved communities. A Yale Law School professor called the school an experiment with national significance. The New York Times called it the most ambitious reordering of legal education since the 19th century.
It was considered a reordering because it was considered a completely new model of legal education.
That's Dean Sudha Sethi. One of the first deans, Haywood Burns, spoke of a new model for breaking down the barriers between theory and practice. Other law schools followed a Harvard model, starting with practical stuff like contracts and torts and taking apart cases, but moving on to lectures and the Socratic method. The CUNY school offered no grades and focused on the practical side of being a lawyer, such as counseling, negotiations, and contracts, while also leaning into teaching students to shape public policy. Students would work in simulations and then clerk for judges or assistant district attorneys, and the students represented clients out of the school's own clinic.
It's a profoundly transgressive thing to have been developing in the late 70s and early 80s, and I think that it broke the mold for what a curriculum looked like at the time. I think a lot of other law schools have tried to catch up to that in the last couple of decades, but we're still in the front of the pack when it comes to innovating in legal education that way.
As a result, the school attracts activist-minded students.
Many of them are folks who come into law school having worked previously as community organizers or something like labor unions, other folks who are really interested in a particular aspect of what public interest lawyering looks like.
In 2012, when the school moved to Long Island City, it was reported that 2/3 of the students chose pro bono jobs over high-paying firms. Since then, the National Jurist magazine has ranked CUNY School of Law among the top 10 law schools for public interest law. And its subsidiary, Pre-Law magazine, has ranked CUNY School of Law second in racial justice the past 3 years, behind only Howard University. Dean Sethi credits this to programs that keep the school diverse and accessible to non-traditional students and to its curricula.
We have racial justice infused into all parts of our curriculum. So if you're learning property or if you're learning contracts or other classes that every law school in the country teaches, you are not just learning it in the way that other people might learn it down the road. You're learning it in a way that thinks about critical lenses on that kind of law, what our history has been in the United States of developing this law, learning about the racial history that often undergirds that, and then thinking as lawyers in this space, how is it that you navigate what the law has become and thinking about how the law ought to change and what your role is in changing it.
For Urban U, this is Shannon Ayala.
You have been promoted.
I said I want something big.
It started with a comment on TikTok, and now her videos reach millions. Kalissa Prasad has built a community with more than 200,000 followers, creating content mostly from her bedroom in Queens. She took us behind the scenes to talk about the career she's designed in the digital spotlight and how CUNY helped make it happen.
I started creating videos on TikTok because everyone was doing it. We were in a pandemic, not much to do besides be on the phone.
A theater major at Hunter College and a graduate of LaGuardia, the prestigious performing arts high school, Kalissa knew what she wanted to do, pursue an acting career.
Let me tell you something. You can't burn me!
I'm ready to audition. I'm ready to be running around the city, meeting casting directors, and I know that CUNY's gonna allow me that flexibility to do that.
And then something interesting happened.
Saw the CUNY TikTok on my For You page one day, and I was like, is my college making TikToks? Is that allowed?
I guess we'll never know. This is
hate, double hate.
They were quite funny, too, and I was like, oh, I think this is my chance. This is an opportunity to ideate, perform, write, meet new people. I need to be part of this.
So Kalissa reached out to CUNY TikTok, commenting on one of the videos with a simple message.
Yo, I'm pretty funny. Can I be part of this account? In like 20 minutes, I had a DM from them being like, do you want to make a TikTok? Like, send us one, and if it's good, like, we'll post it.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
And it did really well. And then they kept contacting me and being like, hey, you want to make another? You want to make another? I was like, yes.
2 Christmas tree ornaments filled with jingle bells.
Kalissa's vision for her videos? To create authentically New York content.
We were taking these like trending sound moments and like making them fun and making them New York. I mean, CUNY students are predominantly from New York. We have international students, and that's amazing. There's some people that I've met from California who have come here to go to CUNY, and that's beautiful, but CUNY's super New York at the end of the day. And yeah, I just tried to like New Yorkify all of it and Queensify all of it too, because that's my unique perspective.
As her videos gained momentum, Kalissa was offered an admin role, and then she was selected as one of 5 creators from different colleges across CUNY.
I was helping create this very parasocial online cluster of CUNY students from all the university, like not just one. Like it was all the colleges being integrated into one space. It was really special. So by the time we got back to in-person classes, people were like, hey, I've seen your stuff, like this is super cool. My admin role expanded into working at the Office of Communications as a work-study job.
And then came a light bulb moment, the realization that this creative passion could actually make money.
Being able to pay some of my tuition by making TikToks and also just meeting people and just creating was insane. That was the first taste that I got of it being a job. I think it became very real when I like gave my mom like $500 from my work-study job, and she was like, where did this? And I was like, because I make the... And she was like, oh, okay.
Her work-study job gave her a chance to flex other creative muscles too. Direct shoots, write scripts, appear in a CUNY campaign, and connect with like-minded friends.
Shout out Brian, Alexis, and Rachel. They were my like OG CUNY communications office crew. And we were interns and we were work studying and we were just making cool stuff together.
Since graduating in 2022, Kalissa has been pursuing careers in both traditional acting and the digital creator economy. She explains the difference as vertical versus horizontal.
The vertical stuff you see me do on my platforms is brand deals. Those are partnerships that me and the brand, we talk about. They hire me as like a freelancer and I make a commercial for them from scratch, right? They give me a brief, I come up with the script, I act in it, I recruit my sister to be part of it. All the things. I'm like a one-woman show in that capacity. When I audition for a commercial on the traditional side of things, the acting side of things, I get an appointment from my agent, my commercial agent. Hey, these are the lines, this is the audition, self-tape for it. Those are horizontal that you'd see on like TV or like before a YouTube video or whatever it is. So.
And how does Kalissa shoot her popular videos that get millions of views?
I shoot all of my videos in this room. Let me show you. Come on, let's go. This is my setup. Ta-da.
One more time.
This is my setup.
That's right. Kalissa props her phone on a candle by her bedroom window to create videos sharing her thoughts, dances, and personal stories, which have racked up tens of millions of views.
I made a video actually about a date that I had been on where I juggled and the guy did not appreciate it. And he broke things off with me like a week later and I was like, oh man, okay, I won't do that next time.
But something unexpected happened from sharing that story.
My current boyfriend saw that and he followed me and he was verified on TikTok, which means he had this nice little blue check mark and I was like, he's the real deal, I can't not follow him back. So it just snowballed into romance from there.
Kalissa's boyfriend, also a content creator, sometimes appears in her videos. And so does Kalissa's sister, who happened to have gone to CUNY too. It's all in the family. Her sister appeared with her in her most viewed video ever.
My Bomb Pop video that has like 30 million views, that was me and my sister. I had her dress up in a hoodie and drew a little mustache on her so she could play the camera guy Steve and make my vision come to life.
And that's not all. Kalissa is making it happen on the traditional side of entertainment too, landing a part in a Super Bowl commercial and sharing some big news with friends.
I booked my first movie.
No way.
Kalissa's grateful to CUNY for her education, getting real-world experience, making friendships that last, and the clincher?
I graduated CUNY debt-free. What more can you ask for?
Maybe just one more thing. Remember the video about the guy who dumped her for juggling? Well, and perhaps the sweetest twist of all, Kalissa Prasad found love with someone she's perfectly in sync with. For Urban U, I'm Linda Samidian.
That's all for this episode of Urban U. Thank you for watching these powerful stories from the largest urban university in the nation, the City University of New York.